Here's another problem we're working on, completing the square to solve this second degree equation. 2x squared plus 4x equals 16. It's second degree because the highest power on x is the second power. Now, this one actually is doable by factoring, but I'm demonstrating with the completing the square method on this one, so it's simple for you before we get into the more difficult ones. Let's go through the same 8-9 steps that we had gone through previously. Let's see, the first step was to isolate the x squared and x term in parentheses on the left side. The second step, now listen closely, the second step is to factor out the coefficient of x squared. Now, I want you to notice, some of you are going to make this mistake if you're not listening now. You're going to factor out the LCD, the greatest common factor, which is 2x. No, I didn't ask you to factor out the greatest common factor. All step 2 says is factor out the coefficient that's multiplying x squared. The number 2 is multiplying x squared. But be careful, when you pull it out of the parenthesis, you have to pull it out of both terms that are added together in that parenthesis, not just the first guy. You have to pull it out of everything. So if you pull out the 2, what's left is parenthesis x squared plus 2 times x. Okay, and that bring down the equal sign at that point and bring down the 16. Now, step 3, you're going to divide both sides by that coefficient of x squared that you just pulled out, the 2. It eliminates the x squared, the 2, and it gives us x squared plus 2x equals 4. That's what we were going for. We were going for the x squared term to have an invisible 1 in front of it, not any other number. That's all step 1, 2, 3 was to get to the point we're at now. Now, step 4 is add half the coefficient of the x term, not the x squared term, but the x term, squared to both sides. So we have x squared plus 2x plus bracket. Okay, half the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient that's multiplying x here? It's the number positive 2. So we're adding bracket 1/2 times 2, close the bracket squared, and then add it to the other side, 1/2 2 bracket squared. Okay, so now step 5, simplify only inside the brackets. Half of 2 is 1, so it's 1 to the square power, 1 to the square power. Step 6 is simplify the right-hand side. So bring down the left side plus bracket 1 squared equals 8 plus 1, which is 9. Okay, so that's x squared plus 2x plus bracket 1 squared equals 9. Step 7, we're ready to apply the formula. And for those of you who hate that formula, you should just look at this and say, okay, I'm going to put parenthesis x plus whatever's in that bracket, including the sign, and then close that parenthesis and square it. That's how I'm going to factor the left side. It's parenthesis x plus 1 parenthesis squared equals 9. Now, a lot of people come to me and they say to me, I don't get that. Why is that true? I told you why that was true in the previous video. It's true because we use the formula to factor the left side. Now, if you don't like using formulas, you're not going to get your head wrapped around that, and you're just going to have to go, well, I don't know, it's x plus the stuff in the bracket, including the sign squared. That's just a shortcut. It makes absolutely no sense. That's why you're unhappy about it. It doesn't make sense when you do it that way. If you learn to use a formula, it makes all the sense in the world. So it's your call, but I just want you to understand that step 7 has a purpose. I mean, it has a real valid explanation. So don't worry about it. Okay, number 8, we're going to get rid of the square by taking plus or minus the square root of both sides. Now remember, we introduced the square root sign here because we're trying to get rid of that square. X is locked up in that parenthesis, and we need to get it by itself. So to get rid of the square, we need to take plus or minus the square root of both sides. So we have x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3. Step 9, solve for x by subtracting that 1. So we have negative 1 plus or minus 3. Now we can break this up into 2 solutions. First, with the addition sign, we have negative 1 plus 3 is 2, and union that solution together with negative 1 minus 3, which is negative 4. Thus, our solution set is the set of x values 2, comma, and negative 4. Now, that's not an ordered pair. Again, I want to remind you. That is a set of x values, and each of them individually satisfy this second degree equation. By the way, it is no accident that we have the highest power in our second degree equation is a 2, and we have 2 solutions. The fact of the matter is that you will get exactly 2 complex solutions whenever you solve a second degree equation. All right, so the degree of the equation tells you the number of solutions you'll get. Now, sometimes you'll even get the imaginary number I. We haven't gotten there yet, but eventually we will.